First contact follies. The day everything changed started like any other aboard the galactic research vessel Horizon. Nora Rodriguez was hunched over her microscope in the xenobiology lab, studying tissue samples from the station's latest diplomatic visitors, when she noticed something odd. The alien cells were deteriorating at a rate that seemed impossible, but not because of any contamination or experimental error. They were breaking down simply from exposure to what the humans aboard considered normal environmental conditions. "Hey, Dr. Vex Nor, take a look at this," Nora called out to her Arthaxian colleague, a towering insectoid being whose multifaceted eyes sparkled with constant curiosity. The alien scientist clicked their mandibles thoughtfully as they examined the samples. "Most peculiar," Vex Nor's translator hummed. "The cellular structure appears to be dissolving. But that's impossible under standard containment protocols." Nora ran her fingers through her curly hair, a habit that always made Vex Nor's antennae twitch with fascination. "That's just it, these are standard protocols for human researchers. What if our standard is actually extreme for other species?" The revelation hit her like a bolt of lightning. Humans weren't just adapted to Earth's conditions, they were walking disaster zones to most other sentient species in the galaxy. Their very presence created an environment that most alien life forms found challenging, if not outright hostile. The discovery sparked a flurry of activity in the research wing. Within hours, the station's primary conference room was packed with scientists from 12 different species. Nora found herself standing before the assembled researchers, trying not to fidget under the collective gaze of beings that ranged from crystalline structures to floating gas clouds. "The implications are staggering," she explained, gesturing to the holographic display of her findings. "Humans don't just survive in conditions that would kill most species, we thrive in them. Our cellular repair mechanisms, our bone density, even our basic metabolic processes are operating at levels that most species would consider extreme." Research Director Luxterra, a bioluminescent entity contained within a sophisticated environmental suit, pulsed with intense colors that Nora had learned to recognize as scientific excitement. "This explains the repeated equipment failures in human-occupied sections. Your species' natural biochemistry is literally corroding our standard materials." The revelation sparked a chain of events that would reshape human-alien relations forever. As Nora worked with her alien colleagues to understand the full implications of their discovery, she couldn't help but notice how they began treating her differently. The way they flinched when she moved too quickly, how they triple-checked their protective gear before entering her lab space. "You know I'm not actually radioactive, right?" she joked to Vex Nor one day, after watching them carefully extend their sampling tool to its maximum length rather than approach her directly. "Your species consumes highly caustic substances for pleasure," Vex Nor replied, mandibles clicking in what Nora had learned was their version of nervous laughter. "You literally drink acid and call it refreshing." "Coffee isn't that acidic," Nora protested, then paused. "Well, okay, maybe the way I brew it is." The situation reached a turning point during what was supposed to be a routine physical examination. The station's medical team, led by the gelatinous Dr. Blob, as the humans had nicknamed them, their actual name being unpronounceable, had requested baseline readings from all human crew members. Nora sat patiently as various scanning devices whirred and hummed around her. Everything was going fine until one of the scanners started smoking, then sparked dramatically, causing several alien medical technicians to recoil in alarm. "Fascinating." Dr. Blob wobbled excitedly. "Your natural electromagnetic field just overloaded our most sensitive diagnostic equipment. How do you maintain cellular cohesion with such intense internal energy levels?" "I'm pretty sure that's not how human biology works," Nora started to explain, but she was already seeing the familiar gleam of scientific curiosity in the alien doctor's sensory clusters. She had a feeling things were about to get very interesting aboard the Horizon, whether she wanted them to or not. Breaking point. The incident in the medical bay was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Nora noticed an increasing number of accidental equipment malfunctions whenever she was around. Doors would mysteriously seal themselves while she was passing through, environmental controls would suddenly shift to extreme settings, and maintenance robots would develop unusual glitches in her presence. She might have attributed it all to coincidence if she hadn't caught research director Luxterra hiding behind a potted plant, rather ineffectively, given their bioluminescent nature, with an array of scanning devices after one such incident. "You know," Nora said, wringing out her uniform after a particularly creative sprinkler malfunction, "if you want to test human resilience, you could just ask." The floating collection of light patterns that made up Luxterra's form dimmed in what might have been embarrassment. We were concerned about diplomatic implications. The last time we encountered a species with unusual biological capabilities, it resulted in 3 solar cycles of paperwork. So instead, you decided to run covert experiments on the only human xenobiologist on board? Nora raised an eyebrow. Did anyone consider how that might look on an incident report? Before Luxterra could respond, the station's emergency sirens began blaring. A voice that Nora recognized as Dr. Blob's echoed through the corridors, "Alert! Containment breach in Laboratory 7. All personnel please proceed to designated safety zones. Humans please stay exactly where you are. For science." "You didn't," Nora fixed Luxterra with a stare. "We may have slightly miscalculated the reaction between human epidermal cells and certain experimental compounds," the research director admitted, their glow pattern shifting to what Nora had learned to recognize as sheepish anxiety. Racing to Laboratory 7, Nora found chaos. A strange, iridescent foam was spreading across the floor, dissolving everything it touched. Alien researchers were evacuating in panic, their environmental suits cranked to maximum protection. Through the observation window, she could see Vex Nor trapped on top of a rapidly disintegrating desk, their mandibles clicking in distress. "What exactly were you trying to do?" Nora demanded, already pulling on a hazmat suit. "We were attempting to synthesize a material resistant to human biochemistry," Dr. Blob wobbled nervously. "The sample may have reacted, enthusiastically with the residual oils from your last tissue donation. You used my skin cells to create this?" Nora watched as the foam ate through another piece of furniture. "Without asking. The paperwork for human biological testing is extremely complex," Luxterra's glow dimmed apologetically. "We thought a small, unauthorized experiment would be simpler." "Right," Nora sighed, checking the seals on her suit. "Because that's working out great. Has anyone actually tried to neutralize it?" The assembled alien scientists exchanged uncomfortable looks, or what passed for looks among their varied species. "Our standard neutralization protocols seem to be feeding it," Dr. Blob admitted. "Of course they are," Nora muttered. She grabbed a container from a nearby emergency kit. "Someone get me access to the coffee maker in the human break room. You want to attack it with more caustic substances?" Vex Nor called from their perch, antennae twitching in alarm. "Trust me," Nora said, already heading for the break room. "If anything can neutralize a runaway reaction caused by human biology, it's the thing we use to jumpstart our mornings." What followed was either the most ridiculous or most brilliant moment in xenobiological research history, Nora wasn't quite sure which. But watching the horrified expressions of her alien colleagues as she dumped 3 pots of extra-strength coffee onto the spreading foam, she had to admit it was definitely memorable. The experiment. The coffee incident, as it came to be known, should have been the end of the unauthorized experiments. Instead, it only seemed to fuel the alien scientists' fascination with human capabilities. Their methods, however, became slightly more creative. "Nora," Vex Nor's voice crackled through her comm unit one morning, "we require your assistance with an urgent maintenance issue in the artificial gravity control room." She was already suspicious. The same gravity control room that somehow reversed polarity in the human quarters last week? "A completely unrelated matter, I assure you," Vex Nor clicked rapidly, a sure sign they were being less than truthful. "Though perhaps you should wear your magnetic boots." For safety purposes only, of course. Nora sighed, but headed to the control room anyway. Better to deal with whatever they had planned under somewhat controlled conditions than risk them getting creative again. She found not just Vex Nor but also Dr. Blob, Luxterra, and several other researchers she recognized from previous accidents. "Let me guess," she said, crossing her arms. "There's no actual maintenance issue. We have developed a hypothesis." Dr. Blob announced enthusiastically, their gelatinous form quivering with excitement. "Human adaptability must surely have limits, and understanding these limits is crucial for safe cross-species interaction. The coffee incident proved that humans can neutralize complex chemical reactions using substances that would be lethal to most species," Luxterra glowed thoughtfully. "But what about physical adaptability?" Before Nora could protest, the gravity in the room began to fluctuate wildly. She found herself bouncing between floor and ceiling as the artificial gravity cycled through different planetary standards. "Fascinating." Vex Nor clicked, taking readings. "Notice how she maintains spatial awareness despite radical gravitational shifts." "I maintain spatial awareness because I grew up playing zero-G sports," Nora managed to say between bounces. "This is basically just a Tuesday at the gym for me." The scientists froze. Zero-G, sports. Dr. Blob wobbled incredulously. "Humans intentionally expose themselves to variable gravity conditions, for recreation." "Wait until you hear about parkour," Nora grinned, executing a perfect flip as the gravity reversed again. She was starting to enjoy their reactions despite herself. The experiments continued, each more elaborate than the last. They exposed her to temperature variations that would have killed most species. She introduced them to the concept of sweater weather. They tested her reaction times with increasingly complex obstacle courses. She showed them videos of human game shows, which caused Dr. Blob to temporarily lose cohesion from shock. But everything changed when the horizon received an urgent distress signal from a nearby mining colony. A structural failure had trapped several alien workers in a highly toxic environment. The rescue teams couldn't reach them because the atmosphere was too corrosive. "The miners have approximately 2 hours before their protective gear fails," Luxterra explained during the emergency briefing. "Our environmental suits can't withstand the toxic atmosphere long enough to reach them." All eyes, sensory organs, and various alien approximations thereof turned to Nora. "The atmosphere readings," she said slowly, looking at the data, "they're bad for most species, but..." She did some quick calculations. "They're actually within human tolerance ranges. High end of tolerance, but still manageable. You can't seriously be considering." Vex Nor's antennae curled in alarm. "Why not?" Nora was already heading for the equipment bay. "You've spent weeks testing human durability. Time to put those results to practical use." "But our experiments were never properly documented." Dr. Blob called after her. "The risk assessment forms alone would take days to process." Nora turned back with a grin that made several alien scientists take an involuntary step backward. "Welcome to applied human sciences. Sometimes you have to throw out the manual and trust in human adaptability." As she suited up for the rescue mission, she couldn't help but notice her alien colleagues huddled together, frantically taking notes. Even in a crisis, their scientific curiosity couldn't be suppressed. Some things, it seemed, were universal. Turning tables. The mining colony rescue changed everything. Nora's successful mission, which involved crawling through ventilation shafts that were literally dissolving around her while carrying twice her body weight in emergency equipment, had proven beyond doubt that human durability wasn't just a scientific curiosity. It was a valuable asset. But the aftermath was almost more entertaining than the rescue itself. The alien scientific community's reaction to her reckless disregard for proper experimental protocols, their words, while simultaneously demanding detailed analysis of her performance, was a study in contradictions. "Let me understand this correctly," Luxterra pulsed during the debriefing, their bioluminescence flickering between fascination and horror. You improvised a protective seal for your equipment using what you call duct tape. Standard human engineering solution, Nora shrugged. If it can't be fixed with duct tape, you're not using enough duct tape. Dr. Blob's gelatinous form rippled with distress. But the adhesive compounds in this duct tape are highly toxic to most known species. You know what? Nora said, struck by inspiration. I think it's time for a little role reversal. You've all been studying human resilience. Now I want to study alien reactions to human problem-solving methods. The color drained from Dr. Blob so quickly they nearly became transparent. Vexnor's antennae went completely straight, a sure sign of alarm. Even Luxtera's glow dimmed considerably. Nora pulled out her tablet. I've prepared a presentation on common human engineering solutions, starting with our approach to temporary repairs. First slide, WD-40 and its many, many uses. What followed was perhaps the most entertaining research presentation in the Horizon's history. Nora watched with barely concealed amusement as her alien colleagues reacted to human ingenuity with a mixture of fascination and terror. You're telling us, Vexnor clicked rapidly, that humans regularly use explosive gases for recreational cooking events called barbecues? And sometimes we have competitions to see who can make the spiciest food, Nora added cheerfully. Which reminds me, who's interested in a practical demonstration of human cuisine? The resulting panic nearly triggered the station's emergency evacuation protocols. 3 different species tried to access their environmental suits simultaneously, causing a minor traffic jam at the equipment locker. Dr. Blob attempted to hide behind a data pad, a futile effort given their transparent nature. Perhaps, Luxtera suggested diplomatically, their glow pattern shifting to what Nora recognized as their trying to maintain scientific dignity while deeply disturbed configuration, we should focus on less volatile aspects of human culture. Oh, absolutely, Nora agreed with a grin that made several alien scientists back away nervously. Let's talk about human sports instead. Who wants to see some parkour videos? The presentation had to be temporarily halted when Vexnor fainted after watching a compilation of skateboarding fails. Dr. Blob developed a fascinating new pattern of stress-induced color swirls that the medical team insisted on documenting for future reference. Even the normally unflappable Luxtera was caught trying to send a classified message to the Galactic Science Council warning them about something called extreme sports. But beneath the humor and chaos, something important was happening. The alien scientists were beginning to understand that human resilience wasn't just about physical durability, it was about adaptability, creativity, and an almost pathological refusal to accept limitations. Universal understanding. The true test of this new understanding came sooner than anyone expected. The Horizon was conducting a routine survey of an unstable star system when everything went wrong. A solar flare, far more powerful than predicted, slammed into the station's shields. Multiple systems failing, the station's AI announced with remarkable calm. Hull breach detected in sections 7 through 12. Radiation levels exceeding safety parameters for all known species. Nora watched as her alien colleagues rushed to respond to the crisis. But their environmental suits, designed to protect against normal space hazards, weren't holding up against the intense radiation. One by one, they were forced to retreat to the station's shielded core. The auxiliary shield generators need to be manually reset, Luxtera's glow pulsed frantically. But the radiation levels in that section are well above survivable limits, Dr. Blob finished, their form quivering with distress. Even our most hardened maintenance drones are failing. What about human limits? Nora asked, already checking the radiation readings. They were bad, really bad, but potentially within human tolerance for short-term exposure. Absolutely not, Vexnor clicked decisively. Our experiments never covered radiation exposure of this magnitude. The risk is incalculable. Actually, Nora grinned, remember all those tests you ran on me? I've been analyzing the data too. Human cellular repair mechanisms are pretty remarkable, especially under stress. And I've had worse radiation exposure from that summer I spent lifeguarding at the beach. Before anyone could stop her, she was heading for the damaged section. Behind her, she could hear Dr. Blob's wobbling protests about proper safety protocols and unauthorized human durability testing. Sometimes, she called back, you have to trust that humans know their own limits. Even if those limits don't make sense to anyone else. The next few minutes were intense. Working in the radiation-flooded section, Nora could feel the heat even through her protective gear. But her hands remained steady as she rewired the auxiliary shields, using techniques that would have horrified any proper engineer, including liberal amounts of that duct tape she'd lectured about earlier. When she stumbled back into the secure section, she was greeted by a crowd of anxious alien faces. Dr. Blob immediately enveloped her in a gelatinous embrace, apparently forgetting their usual fear of direct contact with humans. The radiation levels you endured, Luxterra pulsed in astonishment, they should have been fatal. Probably gave myself a nice tan, Nora joked weakly, then noticed all her alien colleagues reaching for their scanners. That was a joke. Please don't start another round of experiments. But something had changed in the way they looked at her, not with fear or scientific fascination, but with understanding. Vexnor stepped forward, their antennae curved in what Nora had learned was their equivalent of a smile. Perhaps, they clicked softly, we have been approaching this all wrong. Instead of trying to understand human durability through controlled experiments, we should have been learning from your species' approach to problems. The willingness to attempt the impossible, Dr. Blob wobbled thoughtfully, to face unknown risks. To break protocols when necessary, Luxterra added, their glow warm and steady. That's what makes humans truly remarkable, Nora finished. Not our physical durability, but our stubborn refusal to accept that something can't be done. Though the durability helps, she added with a wink. In the days that followed, the Horizon's research focus shifted. Instead of studying human biological differences, they began exploring ways to combine human adaptability with alien technological expertise. The unauthorized experiments were replaced by collaborative projects, each species contributing their unique perspectives and abilities. And if sometimes those projects involved explaining to horrified alien safety officers why humans considered certain clearly dangerous activities to be fun, well, that was just part of the learning process. You know, Nora said one day, watching Dr. Blob cautiously attempt to handle a coffee cup, while wearing 3 layers of protective coating, I think we've all learned something important here. That humans are terrifying. Vexnor suggested, their antennae twitching with humor. That the galaxy wasn't ready for us, she agreed. But maybe that's exactly why it needed us.